Picture this. A FIFA official tells the world a stadium is basically full, while the TV broadcast shows entire blocks of red seats behind the goal. Which one do you believe? That's the strange spot football fans have found themselves in since the 2026 World Cup kicked off across the United States, Mexico, and Canada. 11 days into the biggest tournament in the sport's history, the competition FIFA promised would set new attendance records is instead facing a credibility problem nobody quite expected. It's not that nobody's interested. This is a 48-team World Cup, the largest ever held, spread across 16 host cities in 3 countries. And yet, alongside the empty seats, hotels in several host cities are sitting well below the bookings they expected. And flags, actual flags, fans are being asked to hand over at the gates. 3 separate stories, same tournament. Have you noticed those gaps in the stands yourself while watching from home? Because a lot of people have, and FIFA has spent the better part of 2 weeks trying to explain why. So, what's actually going on behind the numbers? Let's start with the basics. This World Cup expanded from 32 teams to 48, which means more matches, more cities, and more logistics than any tournament before it. FIFA built the ticketing model around dynamic pricing, the same idea airlines and concert venues use, where prices shift based on demand. For some games, that pushed seats into 4-figure territory. For others, especially early group matches between lower-profile nations, prices dropped fast once it became clear demand wasn't there. That pricing strategy is now sitting at the center of almost everything that's gone wrong publicly. High costs for tickets, high costs for hotels, and a flag policy that's struggled to apply consistently across 16 different stadiums in 3 different countries. None of it points to a tournament in crisis, but together it's created a steady stream of headlines FIFA didn't plan for. Here's where things get interesting. Take the empty seats. Analysis of the tournament's opening matches found roughly 1,500 seats unaccounted for across the first 6 games, based on FIFA's own attendance figures. Compared to stadium capacity, on paper, that's nothing. Most venues were reported at well over 95% full. But the eye test told a different story. Canada's opening draw with Bosnia and Herzegovina showed visible gaps. Qatar's match against Switzerland was announced at 67,967 fans in a stadium built for 68,827, yet broadcast footage showed clusters of unoccupied seats throughout the game. The most talked about example came from Zapopan, near Guadalajara, where South Korea's win over Czechia was announced at just under 45,000 fans in a venue with roughly 45,600 seats. Television cameras showed entire sections sitting empty. FIFA's explanation has stayed consistent. Officials say attendance numbers reflect tickets scanned at the gates and people inside the stadium footprint, not a literal seat-by-seat count at any given moment. Fans wandered to concourses, FIFA says, or grabbed food, or simply bought a ticket and didn't show up. That's a real phenomenon at almost every major sporting event. The question critics keep raising is whether no-shows alone explain sections that stayed empty for entire matches. This matters because it's not just an optics problem anymore. Attorneys general in New York and New Jersey have opened inquiries into FIFA's ticketing practices, looking specifically at how tickets were released, priced, and resold. Reports also indicated that tens of thousands of tickets were still sitting on FIFA's own resale platform the day before the tournament started. None of that proves wrongdoing, but it does mean a story that started as, "Why does that section look empty on TV?" has turned into something regulators are now asking about too. The bigger issue is that this isn't actually new for FIFA. Brazil in 2014 and Qatar in 2022 both faced similar attendance questions, and FIFA gave similar answers both times. What makes 2026 different is scale. 48 teams means more matches involving nations with smaller traveling fan bases, which means more games where ticket demand simply isn't as strong, no matter how the pricing is structured. A Saudi Arabia versus Uruguay group match isn't going to pull the same crowd energy as a host nation opener, and FIFA's pricing model wasn't built with that gap in mind from the start. Now here's another angle that's been playing out away from the cameras inside the stadiums: hotels.
This was supposed to be one of the biggest tourism windfalls in event history, with FIFA estimating total spending around $14 billion connected to the tournament. Instead, a survey from the American Hotel and Lodging Association found that close to 80% of hotels across host cities reported bookings tracking below their own forecasts.
Kansas City has been hit hardest, with hotel operators there reporting demand trailing well behind a typical June. Seattle's seeing occupancy down compared to last year at this time. One Atlanta property owner said their Airbnb near the stadium, normally fully booked this time of year, hadn't received a single World Cup booking. Mexico City, which hosted the tournament's opening match, has hotels sitting around 30 to 36% booked, according to the local hotel association there. Part of this comes down to FIFA itself. Back in March, the organization exercised an opt-out clause and canceled a large share of the hotel room blocks it had originally reserved across all 16 host cities. In Vancouver alone, that meant losing somewhere between 70 and 80% of its group room blocks, creating a shortfall organizers now project at around 70,000 hotel room nights across the tournament. Hoteliers argue FIFA's early bookings created an artificial demand signal that simply never matched what actually showed up. Think about it from a traveling fan's perspective. You're watching ticket prices spike into the thousands for marquee matches, watching hotel rates triple in cities like New York and New Jersey, and dealing with visa wait times if you're traveling internationally. At some point, plenty of fans are choosing to stay home and watch instead, or wait until their team actually advances before committing to a trip. Interestingly, it's not uniform everywhere. Mexican host cities like Guadalajara and Monterrey are seeing massive growth in short-term rental demand, well over 100% compared to last year, partly because nightly rates there are running a fraction of what hotels near U.S. stadiums are charging. So while American hotels are seeing a flatter tournament than promised, the picture across the three host nations is genuinely mixed. Now let's talk about something that's been just as visible inside the stadiums: flags. FIFA's rulebook bans anything considered political, offensive, or discriminatory, which sounds simple enough until you try applying it across 16 venues with fans from dozens of different countries and histories. The clearest example involves Iran's 1979 flag, the tricolor featuring a golden lion and sun, which many Iranian-American fans use to express opposition to the current government back home. FIFA banned it from venues, ruling it too political. That decision ended up in a Los Angeles courtroom where a judge upheld FIFA's right to enforce the ban on private stadium property, even while acknowledging the free speech tension involved. Fans found workarounds anyway. T-shirts, hats, and yes, smuggled flags still showed up inside SoFi Stadium during Iran's opener against New Zealand. Then there's the consistency question. At that same Iran match, a video circulated showing stewards removing an Israeli flag from one fan while Palestinian flags nearby were left untouched, prompting accusations of uneven enforcement. Separate reports out of Dallas described England, Dutch, and Japanese fans having flags confiscated at the gate, while similar items weren't flagged at other venues. Even outside the stadium gates, FIFA rejected Haiti's original jersey design earlier this year over imagery it considered too political, despite the team already wearing it in a warm-up match. Would any of this actually affect how excited you'd be to attend a match in person? For a lot of fans, the inconsistency is the real frustration, not the rules themselves. A flag means heritage to one supporter in protest to another, and FIFA has struggled to draw a line that holds up the same way in every city, every match, every fan section. So where does this all head from here? Best case, things settle down fast. Once the knockout rounds begin and major footballing nations like Spain, England, Argentina, and France start advancing, demand for hotels and tickets typically surges, the same way it has at past tournaments once fans know exactly where their team is headed next. FIFA could also continue releasing tickets at lower prices to fill remaining gaps, which organizers have already signaled they're willing to do. Worst case, the credibility questions stick around. If attendance gaps keep showing up on broadcasts through the knockout stage, or if the New York and New Jersey investigations into ticketing practices turn up something more serious, FIFA could be dealing with a longer-term reputation problem that outlasts the tournament itself.
The flag policy, similarly, could keep generating friction every time a new matchup brings a politically sensitive flag into a new stadium with a different security team making different calls in real time. Which one of these three issues do you think actually does the most damage to FIFA's reputation by the time the final whistle blows on July 19th? The empty seats, the hotel shortfall, or the flag confusion? So here's where things stand. The 2026 World Cup is still drawing huge global numbers, still delivering plenty of incredible football, and still on track to be one of the largest tournaments ever staged. But it's also dealing with a trust gap between what FIFA says is happening and what cameras keep showing, a hotel market that didn't materialize the way host cities expected, and a flag policy that keeps landing FIFA in the middle of disputes it clearly wanted to avoid.